Qualities of the sea that resonate with me are probably its power, its vastness. It's hard to quantify its size, which I think is pretty cool. And it's something that's just been a part of my life since as long as I can remember. I'm Charlie Enright. I'm a professional sailor, and this is my sea story. When I was growing up, my grandfather was a boat builder, so I was constantly in and around the harbor, kind of teaching myself how to sail, tethered to the dock. When I won my first race, I was probably 8 years old. I remember sailing in the summer. We live in New England. It's a bit of a seasonal sport, and having the fall roll around and not wanting to stop. There I was sailing in Narragansett Bay with a dry suit in November, at 10 years old. That wasn't because anybody made me do that, that was because I wanted to just keep going. Winning races in sailing class and kind of winning my first regatta of consequence, I always remember feeling prideful, although never overtly, internally quite confident. That was important for my general maturation. I learned to sail in boats with multiple people, and that's probably what hooked me. The camaraderie, being on the water with friends, with teammates, having a good time, that's what it's all about. I probably started sailing competitively double-handed in my mid-teens. I always wanted to be on the water, but I was always a little scared of the elements, maybe. Not necessarily of the sea, but more like weather and storms and stuff like that. And I guess the irony now is that I chase those things. That's something that we look for when we're on the water. For me, it's about making the most of every opportunity. Every time I got to go sailing, it was, how can I leverage this into the next thing, into the next thing, into the next thing? And, very quickly I went from sailing single-handed dinghies in Narragansett Bay to racing with a crew around the world. I have sailed with quite a few professional racing teams over my career. We've had a relationship with 11th Hour Racing since 2011. I think we're very lucky to be able to pursue our passion as our profession and to do it with a partner like 11th Hour Racing whose goals and interests are so aligned with ours as sailors is really a dream come true. We have as a team a dual mission, which is to be not only competitive on the water, but to lead by example when it comes to the arena of ocean health and the betterment of the marine industry. It's a match made in heaven. So the ocean race has been referred to as the longest and most difficult sporting event on the planet. It is a approximately 40,000 nautical mile race around the world, currently raced in 60-foot high-tech Grand Prix Amoca 60 sailboats with a crew of 4 or 5. The race stops at a bunch of different locations around the globe, and usually there's somewhere between 5 and 10 competitors. It occurs every 4 years. The race started as the Whitbread Round the World race in 1973. The edition we won was the 50th year of the race, which is pretty cool. The 11th Hour Racing team is the first American team to win the race, and that's something that we don't take lightly. We built a boat for this last edition of the ocean race. The name of the boat was Malama, which means to care for and protect in Hawaiian. Building a boat's a very, very complicated thing. No two boats are the same, and the Amoca 60 is very complicated. It's very high-tech, it's very Grand Prix, it's state-of-the-art, and you're always trying to balance speed with reliability. And in our case, we have another factor in our decision-making matrix, which is this the right thing to do? As a team, we spent a lot of time experimenting with alternative materials. We use virgin carbon fiber for a fair bit, but we use recycled carbon fiber as well, which has 90% less footprint than that of its virgin counterpart. We used a lot of flax, we use bamboo, we use bioresin, and those are the materials, but we tried a lot of different construction methods as well. A lot of times the waste is in the production and not the material. Virgin carbon fiber is the best way to do things today, but if nobody experiments with alternatives, it will continue to be that way forever. As a team that's heavily invested in ocean health and the betterment of the industry, we felt obliged to kind of lead from the front on a lot of these different construction methods and alternative materials. And I think based on what we saw from the rest of the fleet, everybody bought in and began to follow suit, which was great. The on-the-water success is so important because it brings credibility. If you went out there and experimented with all these alternative materials and a new way of doing things, I think you'd always get pushback and there'd always be naysayers. But if you can do all these things and win, then all of a sudden it's not a detriment. I think to affect real change, you need to align people's incentives. So we did a lot of work not only with the race, but with the class association to make sure that teams who invested in these new technologies were rewarded for it. We really tried to incentivize the use of some of these new technologies, and I think when you do that, you see more genuine buy-in from the other teams. I think my personal sustainability journey, if you will, has grown over time, having been around the world 3 times now. First lap around the planet was really an awakening, realizing some of the problems that we were facing. Second lap around the planet was kind of sharing that awakening with anybody who would listen. And then our third lap was about tangible change. We realized that we're in a predicament here. What are we actually going to do about it? I think concrete examples, whether they be through some of the alternative materials we use, reduction in our overall carbon footprint, contributing to the scientific community with our onboard platforms. I mean, it was really about let's walk the walk and not just talk the talk. And that's something that I'm proud of. I think when you start scratching the surface, it's the things that you can see, related to ocean health. But as you kind of dive deeper, you realize the real issues are in things that you can't see. I can see a floating plastic bag thousands of miles from anywhere in the middle of the ocean. Is one plastic bag the problem? No, it's the things you can't see. It's the microplastics, it's the acidification, it's the rise in sea surface temperature. It's hard to look at everything in isolation because everything is so interconnected, and I think the more you understand how it works and what the consequences of your actions are, hopefully the sooner we can get answers and start creating credible change. I have been to Mystic Seaport Museum for various things over the course of my 40 years of life on this planet. And I'm always amazed at how it, in some ways, changes over time, but in other ways it stays the same and adheres to its values. My advice for kids that are learning how to sail or just kind of coming down to the water for the first time would be to have fun with it, because that's what it's all about. And realize how lucky you are just to have the opportunity. I think being on the water does a really good job of teaching you how to be part of a team. I think, in teams, everybody has their own role. And I think the importance of individuals' role within a team are magnified on the water. So I think it's a great teaching tool when it comes to that. I think that every time you leave the dock or the ramp or whatever the case may be and come back successfully, that's a confidence-breeding experience, one that nobody should underestimate. I think being in and around the water is just such a great teaching tool on an individual and team level. The sea has shaped my life tremendously. It's always been a part of it. It will always be a part of it. I'd be a much different person, for sure, having never been exposed to the ocean.